So we are now going to be doing a Kitchener stitch that seams two ends of a tube together. It seems complicated, but it's really not once you break it down into smaller steps. So the first thing you're going to want to do is cut a length of working yarn that is approximately 4 times the length of what you're seaming. So in this case, just the circumference of the tube. Anything longer than 4 times the length will be a little bit unmanageable to try to sew into each stitch, so that seems to be a good rule of thumb. Now you can go ahead and thread the end through your large eye tapestry needle. And grab your 2 locking stitch markers. These are going to be really important at the end of our project, but we're placing them now just so we have them in place for later. So the first one we are going to put on the first stitch on our front needle. Okay, now the fun begins. So line up your 2 tubes so you have a front needle here, your first stitch, and your back needle on the other end, that first stitch. And you can kind of see how it makes sense taking one side from the back and one from the front. That's actually what you want to seam. So get your working yarn that's been threaded through the tapestry needle. And we're going to do a repeat of a few stitches. So the first one is we're going to go into the first stitch on the front needle, knitwise, so as if to knit, and pull it off of the needle. That's the first stitch that's going to be bound off / seamed. And you can see here why it's important not to select a working yarn that's so long that's hard to manage. In the beginning it's a little bit tricky just because you have so much working yarn, but as you continue through the process that will get shorter and it'll be a little bit more manageable. Next, you're going to go into that first stitch on the front needle now, and you're going to go into it purlwise, and you're going to leave it on the needle. You're not going to be pulling this one off. Now you're going to be moving on to the back needle, and you're going to go into that first stitch purlwise, so as if to purl, and remove it from the knitting needle. And the last part of the sequence is to go into that now first stitch on the back needle, knitwise, and leave it on the needle. So you can see it's 4 stitches that binds off 2 stitches in each section. So we'll do it again. The front needle, you're going to go into it knitwise and remove it from the needle. Now go into that first stitch on the front needle purlwise and keep it on the knitting needle. Now we move to the back needle, go into that first stitch purlwise and remove it from the knitting needle. And then the last step is to go into that first stitch on the back needle knitwise and keep it on the knitting needle. So we've arrived at our last 4 stitches. You're going to continue in pattern, knit off, purl, stay on, and the back needle, purl off, knit and stay on. Now we're going to remove the final stitch on the front needle knitwise. And remember that stitch marker that we added to our first stitch? You're going to use that to lift it up and go into that stitch purlwise. Now you're going to remove that stitch marker and go to our final stitch on the back needle purlwise, and again find that remaining stitch marker, it's hanging out there, and go into that one knitwise. Now you just have to weave in your ends in the wrong side of your work, give your knitting a quick seam block, and you're done.